Hey folks, what are we all drinking tonight?
So I'm drinking a Cause and Effect IPA, and they've changed their bottle.
James is holding up, unsurprisingly, a Malbec, but surprisingly, a very colourful Malbec.
It is exceptionally colourful. It's called Asado. I don't think it's as Japanese as it sounds, but it is quite tasty.
And that's from the west end of the orchard, I presume.
Look, I've told you before, Steve, it's Aldi. mainly because the nearest Lidl is about 5 miles away, whereas Aldi is about 1.2. So the Aldi £4.51 selection is coming in handy week after week after week.
But I had a bottle of red wine earlier, which is why it will make less and less sense as the evening wears on and the tiredness kicks in. So I'll be supping some water. How about you, Chris?
I had an event last night, so I'm tapping into the leftovers. I've got John J. Bowman Virginia Straight Bourbon Whiskey. So I'm hoping to finish that.
That's a heck of a leftover you've got.
Right? That's bottle number 2. So.
Right.
So, Steve, I think you need to tell us what sort of red wine you were drinking earlier.
It was a yellowtail red wine with an orange label. And I think it was also a Malbec. I have now forgotten. It was not the one that my wife's mum had the previous weekend that we both thought was nice. So yeah, insights into life that provide no insight, pointless waffle, and that's why everyone's here. And let's disturb their point for being here. Let's talk about Zwift. So what are we doing first? ZRL, according to the notes you sent on Facebook earlier, James. So what's coming up on ZRL this week?
So in the Zwift Racing League, we have it's a bit of a sprinter-palooza with the 2 Bridges Loop routes. C's and D's will do 4 laps. A's and B's will unfortunately do 6. So this is the 2 Bridges Loop, and the only segment on it is first across the line and fastest through segment on the Watopia Sprint Reverse. So this is the one as you do the S's back to front, and it's as you're coming around the last of the S's, go down the hill, turn left, and then hit the sprint. And it is, I think, 160 meters, maybe 180. And it's round about 500 meters after I get dropped. But so essentially, of course, turn left out of the Watopia Pier Pens, straight into the S's, go through the sprint, and then you head up the very start of the reverse KOM route. So that's the hill that peaks around about 10-12%. Then you take a little bypass straight onto the descent, and then you start another lap.
I really like this course as a warm-up course. That's what I do my warm-up on. I've never raced it. It has the only acceptable bit of the com reverse, because as we all know, the rest of the com reverse is just rubbish and I hate it. So yeah, it's a cool course. And I think actually I'm trying to look at the Zwift Insider map and work out where I am. The sprint's actually quite a way from that, isn't it? So I don't think there's the opportunity to go too mad on the com and drop people, because I think they'll just get back to you on the descent. But
I think realistically, being able to hang on through the S's. Craig, we did something with the S's in the second route. Did we do Seaside Sprint, or was it something else we did that had the S's at the start?
No, we did Seaside. Yeah, we did Seaside Sprint, I think.
I know we did Seaside Sprint in HWR. I'm not certain we did it in ZRL, but we definitely did. It might be figure 8. Was it figure 8? Figure 8 reverse.
We definitely did
figure 8 reverse. Yeah.
We did figure 8 reverse. Yeah.
So figure 8 reverse went straight, it turned left out the pens, straight onto the S's, and the S's were monumentally brutal. Like people doing 500 watts over them. I mean, like, really, that's just unnecessary. To the extent that I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna have my first chance at a really good sprint here. Oh shit, I've been dropped. And that's how my season has continued. But yeah, so the first lap's going to be hideous. It's probably going to be so. I'm talking my experience in the B division. I suspect it's going to be 400-watt average to the first sprint, and that's probably 2-3 minutes into the race. I'm not looking forward to this one at all.
Yeah, it's one of those horribly short laps where people can just do the whole lap full gas, can't they? And then above full gas on the segment. So that first lap's just going to be horrific, and then kind of you're going to be holding on through every sprint. Yeah, it's not fun, but yeah, also at the same time fun. Sadly, I don't think I can do this week on ZRL. Clashing a lot with work and other things that are going on. But
I think essentially you'll have two interesting points. So you've got the sprint, which is going to cause separation, but not too long after sprint at all, you've got the climb going up reverse hilly, and that's going to break things up as well. I expect the field to be very split very early.
Yeah, and it kind of. So how is ZRL? I've not really followed ZRL this season. How is it working out the fastest across the line segments? Is it still you've effectively got 6 goes and your best one counts?
You could potentially have the 6 best times. So it's the 10 best times over the course of the entire race.
Okay, so I mean, maybe something to race for if you get dropped early on, but kind of we all know the draft is massive. So just ride around enjoying the scenery, put a podcast on, chill out. If you get dropped, that would be my suggestion anyway. What bike would you ride, James? I would obviously be on the Orange Tron because that's what's currently selected in Zwift, and I can't be bothered changing it. Although the new UI might make that easier, but we'll discuss that a bit more later.
Pink Tron for me.
Yep, same. Pink Tron.
I can't argue. I not very much anyway. You could go something a little oddball with like the Atheos and the DT Swiss 6.2s or the NV7.8s, but that's about it. I
think also it depends on, are you going to target the sprint in the first lap, in which case go maximum aero, knowing that you're going to get dropped on the hill fairly shortly afterwards. I'm looking at the Tron as an all-rounder so that I could maybe hang on over the S's and maybe a little bit on the climb, but realistically I'm going to finish around 55th, so it doesn't matter too much.
This is what Zwift Insider doesn't tell us, though, is it? Because this is essentially a flat course. It's like just over 100 meters of climbing. You're talking about maybe a 30-second effort, I reckon, 45-second effort on the steeper climb. Is there that much of a difference? I mean, when we talk about what's it, about a minute between or 90 seconds between the Zwift frame and the very best climbing frame in the game, over an hour climb. Like against, and that if you look at kind of the frames people can get at level 7 versus the best climb in the bike in the game, it's less than a minute. So over a 60-second effort, is it making a huge effort? So I'd almost, if I wasn't just always on the Tron, I'd probably be going, what's the maximum aero I could get? Because it's such a flat course, and what's easy to stay in the draft. Craig, this is now where we would disagree.
We are disagreeing. So this, as much as you say this is a pretty flat lap, it's 73 meters of climbing per lap. So that adds up to just about 300 meters for the C's and D's and 438 for the A's and B's. There's actually quite a bit of climbing. It's spread out. It's a bunch of punchy climbs, so it's going to hurt because every one of those climbs is going to be pushed.
I think realistically, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because I'm still going to finish around 55th.
Well, let's move on to an event that you hopefully won't finish 55th in, James.
That is correct, because I will not be taking part.
What's coming up in the Herd Winter Racing League this week?
So Herd Winter Racing League this weekend over Friday, Saturday and Sunday is, because we haven't had enough of it yet, we have a single lap of Caspat in France. And anyone that raced in ZRL this week will be absolutely delirious with joy to find out that there are no primes on any of the sprints. So we have a single upper Caspat. We will go through the Marina Sprint over the start finish line. We'll do not very much for about 11 kilometers, and then we'll go through the Pave Sprint, and then things will get a little bit more interesting as we hit the rollers just before the Aqueduct KOM, over the Aqueduct KOM, down the Aqueduct KOM, and then up the greatest hill in the entire world, the Petit KOM, and then descend down to the finish. The end.
And it's so I hadn't really realised quite how far it is until you actually have to do anything on this course, until I opened Zwift Insider just now, and it's about 12k, and that's a hell of a lead in to the bit before the Aqueduct Com. Yet somehow we've managed to both get dropped randomly on roads, haven't we? Before, James, I remember doing this one in ZRL in the Bs, and us both having to sprint back onto a group because we somehow got dropped on the flat. So yeah, hopefully it's a nice chilled out. Everyone could just roll out a 1.5 watts a kilo, and then we'll just go nuts on the comms. But
so from watching the first race earlier today, the start was actually relatively relaxed. So the front was probably doing about 3.5 watts a kilo inside the first minute, which is practically unheard of in a race like this. And the pace was like that up until about 13k, when you start to hit the 5% rollers just before the Aqueduct, which is where I would have got dropped. So the first race as well is normally one of our pacier ones. So it was quite surprising that the pace wasn't that hard at the start, but then it is literally 13 kilometers pan flat up until anything happens. So, and then things get exciting.
So it's one of the more well attended, but the one thing I will say is there are no real team tactics going on in race 1 versus, so race 2, we're going to see, ATP is notorious for that. If you wanted to, you could get 8, 10, 12 of your guys and gals together and sort of TTT it and drive the pace and make a selection early. But with nothing really to fight for in terms of primes or sprint points, there was no real incentive in race 1, which I did, to drive the pace. So Buggy made a jump for it early. I hopped on his wheel just for some fun. But that was all quickly collected. But you could easily drive the pace if you had team tactics and worked together on Discord.
do we think that works though? I mean, because the noticeable thing about the start of this lap is that you essentially gain no altitude. Like I remember you're about 10k's in and you've climbed about 10 meters. Like it's really flat. So is there a bit where you can make it tough enough to make a real selection, or are you just kind of gradually
There's a few.
off one or two?
Yeah, there's
a few.
definitely some spots. So thinking back to when I first moved to the Bs, and Dirt had Operation Bear Claw running, and that was hard. That was really, really hard. And yeah, it was. It was fun. We went fast, and that was HSRL, so we were doing primes. But no, we were dropping people left, right, and center, or the dirt guys were, and I was just hanging. I was doing a pretty good job to just hang on.
I think the answer is, as a solo, absolutely no chance whatsoever. But if you've got a group of say 8+ who decide you want to just go and hammer 5.5, 6+ for a minute to try and have a bit of a breakaway, that's an option, but it is still a really, really, really flat start to a race. And I think if the race had primes with the Marina Sprint and the Pave Sprint, there would be obvious like separation points, but because there's no incentive to go for them, then there isn't any incentive to go for them. So, if you had a team of 10 and you decided, okay, at 5 kilometers, we're all going to go at 6 watts a kilo for 60 seconds to have a go at a breakaway, that could potentially work. As a solo, you have absolutely no chance, probably not until the Petit Com. You could potentially have a little breakaway on the Aqueduct, but you're going to get pulled back by everyone else on the downhill and the flat afterwards. So going by what I saw in the first race, it's going to be very tame up until the Aqueduct, which was probably 6 watts a kilo, maybe 7. but then that all came back together, and like front group just before the aqueduct was half the field of the race. There was like 51. There were 51 in the front group up until the aqueducts in a field of 105, and the aqueduct dropped about 10. So the front group was still 37 going into the Petit Com. So that basically shows that the initial pace was quite friendly.
And that's what I'm saying. Like half the field was in the front group in race one up until that point. But if you push the pace, you're not going to break away as a group of 8, 10, 12, but you will dislodge 8, 10, 12 before you get to the aqueduct. And then you'll lose another 8, 10, 12. And you'll go from half the field to a third of the field and then select from there. So that we could have selected down earlier in race one if we had team tactics in play.
Yeah, and I think if a team was going to make, that surprise attack to try and distance another team and deliver their guy that can really climb Petit Com fast to the bottom, I think attacking just before the pave sprint, going hard across the pave, that's a spot where you are going to distance the group with the higher rolling resistance. And if you're knowing you're going to go hard, the group, if you hit that with the group stretched out to break the draft, if there isn't another big team that can get organized fast to chase you, you are going to get a pretty good gap, I think.
Yeah, drop a burrito and then you're gone.
So what are we thinking bike choice wise then? I'm hearing not much action till the comms. Are we thinking best climbing bike?
Not steep enough. I'm going to go Pinktron again. Your two climbs, aqueduct is 5%, Petit Com is 4%. I don't think either are steep enough to warrant a climbing bike, especially on the Petit KOM where you have flat section. Well, essentially, the climb is built into 2 sections. So you've got the initial 3% for probably like a third of the climb, and then you've got probably 5% for the rest of it, but that's broken up into shallow and steeper bits. But I don't think any of it is steep enough to warrant a climbing frame or wheel set.
I'd unfortunately agree. I think you could go. So if you're confident in your climbing, you could definitely go full aero with the thought that the downhill and then flat finish. But that's to me, that's the other play. It's not, the other play isn't the climbing frame.
I actually think that probably makes more sense from the Tron. If you think you can climb, because the descent is fast and the finish is very quick, and so much of the rest of the course is pan flat that I think that I've actually agreed with Craig after he said he agreed with me, but he didn't.
And having said I'd go climbing frame, I think if I could actually be bothered to change my change my frame from the orange Tron I'm currently on, I probably would go best climbing best flat frame, make it easy on the flat at the start, and then I'm going to have to work hard on the climbs anyway. And like you say, there's a lot of descent, chance to beat people in the sprint at the end. So we're all agreeing. That's weird. Chris, please disagree with us.
I would love to, but I will actually, because I'm going Tron. I'm not going flat because I need every little watt saving that I can use on the climbs. I know it's alternating. I know it's draftable, but I can stomp on the pedals when I need to. And I need the all around, not the orange Tron. There's no Dutch here. I'm pure pink Tron through and through. So that's what I'm taking. That's what I took, and I'll stand by that.
I think ultimately it comes down to what your strengths and weaknesses are. I am not great on the flats, so I probably want to maximize as much aero as possible, whereas I'm decent on the climbs, so I wouldn't need the climbing frame, but I definitely need the aero going downhill.
I'm equally bad on the flat and the climbs, so I'm going to take an all-round frame.
Fair enough.
I think we've thrashed this enough, given that we just thrashed it last week about ZRL. So
yeah.
Moving on.
Days of the week, James, in which order will they happen this week?
I'm going to go chronologically, which I know will disappoint you. So after Caspats, we move on to the Herd Sheeries, which is our women's only category racing series. It's the second of 3 scratch races on Saturday and Sunday with Innsbruck UCI, but just the first 10.95 kilometers. So that'll be from the start pens up to the top of the Innsbruck KOM forwards. On Sunday and Monday, we have Herd of Mountain Goats, which is ironically exactly the same backwards. So it's start pens, reverse KOM for 9 kilometers, and finish at the top of reverse KOM. Stampede, our individual time trial event on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, is 10 laps of the Duchy Estate in Yorkshire. Really sorry. And finally, on Wednesday and Thursday, we have our Bullseye Points race, which is our multi-lap first across the line points race, which I really didn't plan this well. It's 8 laps of Duchy Estate in Yorkshire.
Sadly, it's coincidentally the same route in reverse, not ironically, James. But I blame Alanis Morissette for your.
As you should.
Cool rides then this week. Any of you taking part in any of those?
0.
I will not be Zwifting for the next 3 weeks. So
yeah, we know Craig's sitting out and James, you're reducing your racing. Chris, any other rides you're doing this week?
With Tuesdays and Fridays, that's about all my legs can handle. As much as I love Duchy Estate, I feel like I won't have the legs to compete this week. So kudos to anyone who is.
I'm hopefully going to jump on Wednesday. I can't ride ZRL Tuesday this week. So yeah, hopefully do the Bullseye Wednesday, either morning or in the evening, UK time. So what are we on to next then?
Let's talk about
November
fun
update.
new things, Steve.
November update, yeah.
So November's update, as it currently stands, given we're in October at the moment. So but basically Zwift's next release is exciting. It's got new roads, and actually for the first time in a very, very long time, to the extent that I can't remember it ever having happened before, Zwift have basically given us a bit of a product roadmap for the next 6 months. So very, very quickly, we have new roads in Japan. We have clubs being made public to all. And we've got a new UI as well, user interface, which is fun. The new roads are an expansion of the Mikiri Islands, or you may see whichever one you want to call it, which Zwift have said will be basically their second major hub after Watopia. And it's called Neokyo, which is basically New Tokyo. And it's going to be flat, dark, and very bright, which sounds fun.
Yeah, this looks genuinely really cool. Like the screenshots they've shared, they've said it's going to be in like a perma darkness, but it looks really cool. Like I know I actually like Zwift embracing this. I know I've been on rants before, like it's just a game, folks. But actually, I love the fact that Zwift is embracing the gaminess of it. Like I love that with New York as well. Like I know kind of people have mixed feelings about the routes in New York, but I love the fact that New York's like this. We're just playing up to imagine things that are going ahead, like in the future. And I love this. This is kind of imagining of what's going on. So yeah, I think it's cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Very quickly on clubs. So clubs have been available to some event organizers for the last year. What this will potentially do is allow anyone in your club to join the club using the companion app, and all being well, will be able to create private club events. And the new user interface will make it easier to find rides to join in, find rides to just go and explore on, any badges you haven't done, and it looks fun.
So I think that we can draw a line through that. Let's go on to what has annoyed us about Zwift this week, Craig.
So I'm going to say Zwift Racing League. As much as I have fun with Zwift Racing League, and I was really into it when we first started a year ago. The big promise of it was the racers you always had ruining your race from the category above or two categories above weren't going to be there. And I think the importance of this has gotten so much. And I mean, to be fair, people are doing it for are controlling their power for the best of reasons, because they don't want to let down their teammates. But it's creating huge log jams at the very top of each category, or at least that's what I'm finding in my division. I think, James, you're finding the same.
There's an awful lot of people in my division whose average power is very conveniently 4.00 or 4.01. Yeah, it's. I suspect they could probably do better than they actually are doing. But
see, I don't blame ZRL so much for this. I don't mean the players in that way, but the problem I have is that I think the great thing about ZRL is where you kept teams together, and I think the problem is that the teams are so like ephemeral and have moved around so much that actually, like, the idea was if you did really well, you got promoted up leagues, and you would get so what if the top league had everyone that was maintaining their power, so they all do 4.00. Then you've got a league full of people who do 4.00, and it's incredibly even. The problem is like it gets mixed around so much, so you end up in like Division 7 of the Bs, you've got a team that have got 3 riders that are doing 4.00, which is not where you expect there to be what you expect there to be in a weaker division, do you? So I think the problem more is like, how do you keep people in the same teams? How do you keep the divisions moving up and down? And throwing back to that kind of general, how do you stop people being a bit cheaty in Zwift? So
and then even with the bidets, we went from Division B 4, 5, 6, finishing second, and then we were immediately promoted with the same riders to B1 the following season and got our asses kicked, rightfully so. So we took it. We rode every week and we had our smiles on, but it just didn't really make any sense. What I would like to see is that sort of AutoCAT system from the classics being applied to the rest of the WTRL universe. It seemed like they had enough algorithms running in the background where they could figure out who belonged where, regardless of sandbagging and power manipulation. But I suspect we'll get there.
I think the problem with AutoCAT was that it was specific to courses and fields. So what you might have been categorized in C4 one race, you'd be C3 the next, and maybe C5 the one after that. It changed every week. So I think that was great as a sort of determination of what the field was, but not really a solution for the overall ZRL. But I know that Zwift have plans to implement stuff in terms of categorization fixing in the future, so we'll see how those pan out.
For me, I don't know. I'd take more of a wheelchair basketball approach. So I know you're all aficionados here, but for listeners of the pod that aren't, kind of wheelchair basketball has a categorization system based on basically how able you are. So I would be worth 4 points as somebody who's fully able. Someone who's got quite a high spinal fracture and like very limited movement will be worth 1 point. And you could do this with the same, like you have people who are worth 4 watts per kilogram in your B category, and like actually your best division team can have 6 riders who are all worth that, but to be in Division 7 you have to be a lot lower ranked. So I think they could do cleverer things with how they sort the leagues and sort the teams, and how people are sorted, because you're not going to want to be like a team of 3.2s in B and one person who can ride at 4 and just watch them win every week. I think you get a bit bored of that. But Right, we've got to wrap up soon. Anything else annoyed? What's annoyed us about Zwift? I'm annoyed about the how they fucked up the UI, the recent update. So you could basically drop into the pairing screen and cheat, which is fantastic. Well done, Zwift, and your QA systems. James, what's annoyed you?
Nothing has annoyed me about Zwift at all. I think they're
Boring.
the greatest company in the entire world. So I've got my
Boring.
second
Glaring
interview with them on
interest.
Monday. I love
Chris,
you,
please
Zwift.
write the world.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Yeah, not this week, but last week I was on the Champs-Élysées Tour de France Femmes ride, and I never got the yellow jersey. They rolled it out. They said everybody gets to ride on the Champs with the yellow jersey. They had a UI update during the ride where I was saddled from my normal jersey to a gray jersey. And we were just chatting back and forth about who was wearing yellow and who was still wearing gray. So figure that out before you roll it out.
Oh, boo, Zwift.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, we've got to dash and do the live commentary, but thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
I guess.